Vital Spark is a community arts organisation based in Liskeard in Cornwall, which encourages creative people from all disciplines to work together to create innovative performance pieces. In January 2015, we were approached by Patrick Bailey from the Philharmonia Orchestra's digital arm, iOrchestra, to see how we might collaborate with their Beyond the Planets project based on Holst's The Planet Suite. We put forward the idea of getting a group of musicians together to jointly compose and perform a piece of music. Patrick took this suggestion away and developed it into something much more exciting than we could ever have imagined.
We decided we wanted to meet local musicians and work with them and play with them as well. And so we set up a series of sort of satellite projects around the county, basically tracing the journey of Music Lab, working in 5 different towns. And in each town we made contact with a group of instrumentalists or musicians or aspiring musicians, all very different types of musicians. And we spent some time making music with them in response to Holst's The Planets. Each group is really distinctive. Some groups have been, one group for instance are amateur orchestral players, so they play orchestral music every week of their lives. It's their great hobby, so they're very familiar with both the repertoire and the process, if you like. What's been really interesting, fascinating and really enjoyable about working at Vital Spark and with this new group Sounds Vital is we've got musicians from very, very different backgrounds. Some are practicing musicians who play week in, week out with various groups, jazz groups or other things. Some are people who came back to their instrument for the first time in many years, having it's been lying dormant in a loft or a cupboard. And others maybe are even trying kind of ensemble music making for the first time, or have just started learning an instrument recently and they took up recently. So they come with very different backgrounds musically in terms of what their interests are and what they're comfortable playing, with very different levels of experience, both as instrumentalists but also as composers as well, because you're asking people to write the music as a group. And one of the kind of things that's common to all 5 groups is that on the first session I arrive with nothing apart from a couple of ideas. And for some people that sense of creating music, composing music comes quite naturally. For others it doesn't. They play a musical instrument but they don't necessarily think about writing their own music, and it's a very new thought for them.
For me with the harp, because I haven't had any proper formal lessons, I was still just kind of feeling my way around it and still very unsure on it, and so I thought I'd bring it along. I decided I wanted to play the harp when I was at a festival one day, and the lady said, okay, try mine, and it went from there, I ended up buying a harp and just trying and fiddling around. I'd have no music theory background, it's just play as I go along and see what happens and try things.
Well, I guess I'm probably the opposite, because I had a very formal musical upbringing, education, and took it into my career of teaching, in primary teaching, but obviously kept the music going as well. And then what I was interested in Vital Spark, this music making, was how we could bring it into the community, because I've just trained as a music therapist and I was interested in the improvisational side of things and how everybody can get some pleasure from it and develop their own skills, and you can create something from nothing.
I play the didgeridoo and I have at least 6 or 7 of them. I used to have more but I sold a few off, and I wasn't sure if Patrick would think this was a good idea, but he seems to have embraced me. Whether it's willing or not, I'm not sure.
I think he was thrilled to bits at the opportunity to conduct a didgeridoo, what I don't think he's ever done before.
I've been involved with Vital Spark in the past, and one of our dance group members came along and told us about the Sounds Vital project, which, as I enjoy playing music, I thought sounded very interesting and I'd like to take part.
I came into it by complete accident because my friend Penny had broken her wrist, so couldn't drive, and she was involved in the Sounds Vital through Vital Spark. And so instead of just sitting in the group, I did a bit of percussion, and the second time I found that rather boring, and so I decided to join the singers, who were a bit thin on the ground. and I really enjoyed it.
What encouraged you to get involved with Sounds Vital?
It sounded a very interesting project. It was a local project, and it was such an amazing thing that this wonderful orchestra was becoming involved with Liskeard and Liskeard. And it was the sheer unknown quantity of what was going to happen, because I'm not a musician in any way, shape or form, although I love music. And I thought that I could be involved in possibly sketching in a rough way, or possibly writing in a word. And so it was just coming along with absolutely no understanding of what was going to happen, and then discovering what exactly did happen, which was astonishing. Well, there was obviously a gap for some voices, and I know that Bunny was very interested in doing voices, and so the 3 or 4 of us that did it in the end just sort of came together. And to begin with, we were sort of just humming quietly in the background, but I think Patrick took hold of us and shaped us into something which we which we were able to make us feel as if we made a good contribution to the overall sound. It was great fun.
Invitations had also gone out to non-musicians to see whether they'd like to come along and observe the sessions and use them as a spark to their own creative process. So what's your involvement been with Sounds Vital?
Well, it comes from being involved with Vital Spark over several years now, and when the call came out for people to become involved, not just musicians but people who are interested in writing or drawing or other things, when that came out, that call, I thought that's great for me. So I came along and attended some of the rehearsals, because I like to write, so I could just sit there and watch what was going on and take some creative spark from the process.
So there you were at Sounds Vital.
Yeah.
Tell me something about how you got involved.
Well, I heard about it through Jenny Jones, that she had met Patrick, and this was going to happen. Music was going to be composed, and different people were invited to come along with their instruments if they were interested. And I thought, oh, I love drawing musicians, and could I come along?
We began by improvising around 2 of the scales that Holst used in the Neptune movement of the planets, as our remit was to base our composition loosely on that part of the suite.
Of his piece Neptune, where he shifts between 2 chords like that, or 2 chords that distance apart, which is why I chose those 2 chords, because I'm connecting back with Holst and back with the planets and back with Neptune, in terms of composing our response to Neptune, if you ever missed it.
What's the second one, did you say?
B minor. Yeah, so G minor, B minor. There's some extra notes in there as well. Play me a G minor. Okay, just keep it going. Open the world up to us. Introduce G minor to us. Follow his movements. Take on a bit, you can go a bit louder. Introduce more notes if you like. And then he's going to keep your eye on here, he's going to do this. Stop. Flutes.
We then devised our main theme. Then we gradually brought it up to speed. Our next step was to get in groups to devise a secondary theme.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Just so they're
It's me
reversed.
that can't
So
count.
what we'll do, we just count across there. You put them at the beginning of that set of 4 there. You put like those into the B and E.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So concert A and B in both groups, both. Yeah, right.
Going down and down and up, yeah.
And then just.
This theme was definitely more challenging. But gradually we began to get the hang of it. Interspersed between these two themes, we wanted sections reflecting the sounds we'd heard at a visit to Goonhilly Earth Station, when we'd listened to the sound of a satellite passing over Cornwall.
That's going to sound fun. There's like 3 different signals kind of through the ether. But I was just thinking also of that journey the Goonhilly satellite made from nothing to being kind of very strong to being nothing again. Whether we have 3 of those.
Finally, we developed a section that we thought of as a cloud sequence. When we put it all together, we performed it to a group of local residents in the salubrious venue of Liskeard's Westbourne car park, in front of Eye Orchestra's music lab.
Performance of a brand new group coming out of the festival Vital Spark called Sounds Vital, and it's been set up by this thing behind them, this music lab, which is being run by the Philharmonia Orchestra as part of a very large outreach project down here in Cornwall called Eye Orchestra. But the challenge we've set this group was to kind of create some of their own music based on one of the planets, and we chose Neptune, who's the mystic. The mystical planet in the suite of music that Holst wrote. And we just started with some scales and some notes that Holst uses to build his piece. And we used the same notes to build our own piece. And it sounds nothing like Holst at all. But that's kind of good, but we've used the same building blocks to start it, so it shows where you can go. So this is our first go. It's quite free form. It has been lasting about 11 minutes in rehearsal. If it's going really, really badly, it might last 6. If it's going really, really well, we'll still be here Sunday morning. And I expect you all to be here still at the same time. So this is, we called it Spaced Out. This is called Spaced Out. The bits of it are very, very quiet. So we'll hope the diesel engines there.
This performance showed us where we need to tighten things up, so there was another rehearsal and Patrick knocked us into shape, ready to perform our pieces along with the other 4 groups at the Eye Orchestra's Universe of Sound event in Truro. It became our own Cornish Planet suite.
Right, good. So this is Sounds Vital's piece, Spaced Out. Ash, are we ready? Marks, are you ready? Okay, Ash.
And I think the experience has given me, albeit in a small way, is how a professional orchestra might go together, work together to build up a piece, and the discipline involved and the listening and the concentrating. I know it's not quite the same, but it's really made me think about music and how it's composed and how it's built up.
Because I didn't know what, it could teach me about my instrument, and it's actually taught me a lot.
Oh, that's great.
Just like improvising with it and not having the confidence just to try something, not having fixed notes and dots anywhere. It's been quite good that way, so I've kind of gained a lot of confidence through that.
People were coming from all sorts of directions. They weren't professional musicians, they were just people who were keen and really enjoyed music, and I could empathise with them.
What was amazing for me was the way Patrick brought everybody together to actually produce at the end of the session a really good sound.
And I kind of expected to go along to a rehearsal and sit in the corner and make a few notes and write a bit, but actually what happened was I got so fascinated by the process of this piece of music being made by this group of people who'd never played together before. I got quite a bit involved in watching that, and maybe the writing went to the back a little bit, but it's just a fascinating process to observe, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
I was amazed at what we ended up with, and I thought it was extremely good. It was fascinating to compare it with the other 4 groups that had also been doing this, and interesting to see that we were the only ones who weren't a pre-formed group of some sort, and obviously very, very, very differing abilities of music. So that was fascinating to see that we were able to stand our ground and provide an interesting piece, because interesting it certainly was.
But I found that listening to these different musicians that had all arrived, they didn't know one another, they'd never played with one another, and they were very disparate. There was the Australian, whatever it's called, didgeridoo, and glockenspiels and guitars, and a rock musician drummer, and saxophones and flutes, and they didn't know one another. And here was Patrick, who didn't know anyone, and it was absolutely incredible watching him bring them together and actually make something work. And that sort of hypnotised me. So I found I was drawing, but I was more interested in watching and listening for quite a bit. And I found I worked, when I got home, on bits rather than in situ, which is unusual.
Sounds Vital has inspired a lot of people. It's inspired musicians to think more about music making. It's encouraged artists to draw beautiful pictures. But it's also encouraged me to have a go at filmmaking, something I've never done before. Our thanks go to iOrchestra, but also in particular to Patrick Bailey for his skill and humour and giving us such a fantastic time making music. It won't be something that we'll forget in a hurry. In any case, could we ever forget that pointy finger?